preparing to live stream the meeting. Got it.
Yep.
Setting up. So it should be on my Facebook Effortless English page. I didn't announce it to anybody, so we'll see if anybody just finds it. And here we are. It's working. Cool. All right. Anyway. All right. So yeah. So just a casual chat. So anyway, you're saying so your school is really cool where you work. So
yes.
So that you were saying you do like you're doing they give you it's a free yoga class. That's just for anyone in the community or anyone who works there. You can do yoga and do these other things.
Yeah, so for us, I guess first off, just to let people know, I work at the Green School in Bali.
Green School is a name.
Yeah, the Green School, and it's kind of famous because it's an all bamboo school that's that's focusing on sustainability, and part of that's like health and well-being. And so, like I was just saying, like it's different than a lot of schools that I've been at in the sense that every Wednesday we have yoga and Thursdays we have mindfulness. And to answer your question, it's for the teachers on Wednesday afternoons, teachers and staff and faculty. And they have it, I think, Monday and Wednesday mornings for parents. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's just kind of built into the school's philosophy, health and well-being and yoga. And
so like, what's the general philosophy of the school is so like obviously a lot of ecological things.
Yeah, so I think the main focus is sustainability. Mm-hmm. So you're just looking for a sustainable future, but yeah, a lot of the focus on environmental education, outdoor education, experiential education. I think, knowing you for, I guess, 20 or 30 years, I know you're a fan of all that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So so it's not just sitting in the class all the time.
Exactly.
You were just telling me before that. So the kids go out and do some outdoor trip every week, right?
Yeah. So that's every cool. Wednesday in the middle school, I think, and well, it's in Indonesia, so it's called jalan-jalan, which in Bahasa Indonesia means like walk around or wander around.
Kind of like Australian walkabout.
Yeah, exactly. So every Wednesday, the kids sign up, every term for a different one. So last term, they had surfing and scuba diving, chocolate making. This term, they're doing arts and puppetry and jewelry making. So it has, a lot of it can be outdoors, environmental, but a lot of it can be cultural, Indonesian culture, Balinese culture.
Projects and
things. And so every Wednesday, we don't really have your normal calendar. Like you don't go to classes, you show up and then you go to your trip.
That's awesome. So it's pretty cool I can imagine thing. That. So like every Wednesday, for a semester, you're surfing. That'd be great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or making chocolate or whatever.
The cool thing too, in the high school they do it, and to make it a service project, to help the community, they take differently abled people surfing, people that normally couldn't, go surfing. Nice. They'll pair up, and it's really cool. I saw photos, and you have people on the surfboard that couldn't walk or couldn't stand up on the surfboard, but the students they're all certified, like surf rescue, which is another cool thing for students to do, like get certified in surf rescue. And then they like take all these differently abled people and, orphans from the orphanages and things. They just take them surfing so that they can have an experience that they normally wouldn't have.
Yeah. And good for them too.
It's really cool. It's cool to see the kids helping other kids and connecting with them.
Yeah. That's see, that's so great. Getting out in the real world, interacting outside of with people outside of the school, doing actual,
yes,
just a whole, it sounds like there's just a huge variety of stuff they can do, which is
a lot of variety, and it's kind of based on their interests. Some of them are service project oriented, some of them are arts and crafts, some of them are cultural, some of them are outdoor education, adventure. So, and you're kind of encouraged to do one you like, but then the next term maybe do something to branch out and try something you've never done, like.
And so they have is it each is a term is like a semester or a quarter or something?
Yeah. Yeah, it's about 6 or 8 weeks depending on the term.
Oh, okay. And so they there's like one choice per term, or they can choose different, they have like a bunch of choices
there's a bunch of choices. Probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 different choices. So you'll get, a good variety
cool.
of different types of things, and they change every term. And so maybe the scuba diving will be back later this year or next year, but they rotate them through.
Oh yeah, God, it's I just can't imagine like having, because I don't know where you went to high school, but or middle school for that matter, but mine was basically a prison, a big brick prison where we were locked indoors every single day and just sat in our butts, and
it was definitely different.
Listen to someone lecture all day, and that's County. It. Oh, Gwinnett.
Yeah. Where were you? I was in Gwinnett County in Georgia.
Cobb County.
Cobb County. Okay. Yeah. Not too far away.
Yeah. Same. Pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like our playground was just a dirt field. I just remember, and I had like a merry-go-round. Like we didn't have, and it was all metal. Like it, and maybe a few swings. It wasn't like ours has kind of like natural bamboo and rope and tires and of course jungle, like so kids can run around and play. So it's, and even in middle school you wanted to go out and run around and play, but ours was just kind of like a blank Georgia red clay field with a merry-go-round or something.
Although I will say, I'm guessing for you too, since we're the same age, that we at least did have recess. We did have PE, physical education, and we had recess. So we at least got to run around and actually do that and get out during the school day, where I think now a lot of places, they don't do any of that.
No, I haven't lived in America back in the States in over 20 years, so I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm just knowing this from reading and from what I hear, but I do, it's less than what we had. Yeah,
I think, when they cut the funding for education, PE and arts go.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep, math, social studies, science, but a lot of those electives or extracurriculars are what get cut from budgets, I think.
And even outside of the school context, I know that too, that I was just outdoor after school. I was outdoors all the time, pretty much. I would come home and change my clothes and then run out the door. And then I'd be home for dinner, but until dinner, it was out with my friends running around. And I think that even a lot of places, that's not common anymore. Like the kids are indoors, even when they're at home, they're indoors a lot.
I know that one is true. Like I said, the other one I'm not so sure about because I haven't been in the States, so I'm not sure about the public schools now. But I know, you're saying you and I used to at least get recess and PE and run around and chase people and play games and whatever, throw a football. But, what I do know for sure, because I still have my family and friends, like kids don't play outside anymore. And that's kind of my big message. That's kind of what I'm trying to promote is we all, not just kids, but adults, we got to go outside and play.
Absolutely. Adults too.
We need to jump on our bicycles or whatever your thing is, go for a hike or, just go set up a tent in the field. But, there's a big migration indoors with kids just looking at their phones. They don't have neighborhood places to play around as much anymore. And like you said, it's an interesting thing. Like I remember so many times my mom just standing on the front porch screaming my name because it was dark.
Me too. At
night.
Time to eat.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Just scream like someone's mom would do that. They would just scream, right? There's no cell phones. They just scream, and we might be like a few blocks away, right? Just you hear your mom call,
exactly.
I gotta go.
Exactly. Those are really good memories, and I think about it often. Like we weren't allowed in the house during the daytime, and back then we didn't really use air conditioning that much anyway. So like it was hot. And so you wanted to be outside. It was hot outside, but it was hotter inside. And then your mom would just kind of kick you out and be like, you're not allowed in the house until dinner time, till dark.
Right.
And, we'd just find 6 or 8 friends and run around. And I remember, and you probably remember this too, like getting water from the black hose that is always like this horrible rubber taste.
Yeah, just from someone's house or something.
Yeah, you just wander up to someone's house and you're kind of sneaking up and like get in the water, hoping they don't yell at you, and then you run off, and it always tastes horrible because it's been sitting in the sun.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I remember those days. Or someone was asking me about this the other day, and I don't know if you remember it, but I was just talking about how we used to jump our bicycles over ramps.
Oh my God, I did crazy stuff. Yes.
we were crazy because, you know,
that's funny. Yes,
we were jumping things, building ramps, you know, challenging each other, like who, and we would even do silly stuff like somebody would lay down and you'd jump over them
and on your bike. Yeah, we did all that. Yes.
Hope you don't land on that guy or that
girl. We do it on the street.
Yeah.
You did it on this, you know, like asphalt. I know. I think about that. I'm like, crazy, man.
Yeah.
So they got tough little bodies, man.
Good childhood though, right? Good memories.
Yeah, and you're right from well, I think from two perspectives. One is that I imagine like if as a kid your childhood is all just sitting indoors all the time and not being active and not being outside, then as an adult, you know, like that's a big change to make, to suddenly become an outdoor active person. Yeah. And I could see that in my family, like, because it always interests me. I've always been like always want to be out moving, and it's still at my age I still want to do it. And I don't understand people who like don't, but imagine that some people, like in their mind, that it's all uncomfortable, and probably maybe they grew up that way.
Yeah.
So it sets a tone for all of life, that if you raise your kid like that, then it's not healthy for them when they grow up. I
definitely agree. I think, you know, there's a couple things that I think about. One is like whenever I teach workshops or teach teachers or do some sort of training, I say, raise your hand if you played outside until dark. And then whoever raises their hand, I'm like, you were born before 1980. Right. That's about like the mid 80s, maybe, you know, late 80s is when it kind of stopped. People kind of stopped playing outdoors. And if you're born, you know, around the 90s or afterwards, you mostly had an indoor childhood, like at malls or, you know, playing on electronics or the games or watching movies or TV. And that's kind of the cutoff, like late 80s, early 90s. That's kind of when it started. And I always think of a couple things, like now there's words for it, like unstructured, unsupervised time. Like there's technical terms for it, and we just call it playing outside. Like if you read the research on like outdoor play, there's definitely terms that we didn't have, because we would just say, I'll be back at dark, or I'm going to my friend's house. But now it's just called unstructured, unsupervised, you know, playtime for kids. And how important it is for them to not have adults around, and for them to like not have a schedule. Like nowadays it's mostly like play dates, like, hey, I'm going to meet you at 1:00 at this, you know, swimming pool, and we'll have 5 kids. But the thing about it is, if you're a kid and you have 8 other kids and you don't have any adults, you learn how to negotiate. And you probably don't think about this, but you probably used to make up games. Right. And you'd be like, we got a ball, we got some sticks. Okay. And you'd be making up rules on the fly. Like, okay, that's out of bounds, because some kid just hit it out of bounds. And that's how you learn to make your own rules and your own games, and you learn how to negotiate. So you learn all those sort of skills. Right. But if some adult tells you like, here's this and here's this and here's the rules, then you don't really get those skills. You don't learn how to figure that out on your own. Oh, 100%. Even something like for example, just something that has rules. Let's say just playing a game of so football, American football. Like there's a huge difference. I did both Little League, right? So organized, adult coaches, all that. And then I played with my friends like almost every day. And playing with my friends was 1,000 times more fun. Yeah. Because the adults just like killed the fun of it, because there's no spontaneity. And it's like, you know, you would occasionally, some coaches were nice, but others were kind of jerks, you know, they're too serious about it. And it just was totally different feeling. Right. Yeah. And that would be any sport, right? Basketball. Exactly. Or just soccer. Just there's a big, like my friends were also into soccer, and I never did Little League soccer.
in an organized way, but I played with them all the time, and it was just fun, right? Because it's just kids all get together and then let's play. And then they just and you start doing it, and then like there's no refs. So what happens is you say, no, you're out of bounds. No, I wasn't. And then everybody starts arguing and and like you said, then they got to make an agreement. Okay, we'll do it again, or
do over,
whatever, right? Whatever they come up with some solution.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's kind of one of the consequences of not being able to just like have spontaneous free play is like you don't really learn how to make up your own games or your own rules or negotiate. It's something I think about a lot because this is kind of what I'm interested in. It's like kids and play and free play and outdoors.
I wonder if that's connected to, I've noticed when it's been a while, but when I was teaching in, let's say San Francisco, I was teaching kind of early 20-year-olds, like just out of college, 22, 23. But something I noticed, not all of them, but something I noticed with a decent number of them is it's like they were always waiting for someone to tell them what to do. Like some of them had such a hard time to just make a decision on their own without someone above them telling them what to do. Like if I don't know, like if I said, write a page about, just write an essay or one page, just anything, something you like. Oh, well, and some of them, okay. And then others would just be like, well, what specific? And they'd just be like, they want me to tell them everything to do. Or I'd say, let's go on a trip. Where you guys want to go? Oh, I don't know. And it's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, I've had that a few times, like if you're on a trip with kids, and this is like, say 4 or 5 years ago when I would have a trip, and we'll just say the kids were from an urban area like Singapore or Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok or, some big city. And we would be out in the forest and we would have an hour free time. Or let's just say we're at the beach or we're outdoors doing something and like, you have an hour free time. And a lot of them would say, so what do we do? And I was like, well, it's free time. Do what you want to do. Like, you can hang out, depending on where you are. If you're, out on a trail, you just kind of walk around and look for sticks and build shelters. I don't know. It's kind of what free time is about. But a lot of them didn't know what to do with free time unless you gave them sort of a task or rules or some sort. Exactly. And I think you're right. It's because number one, they don't really get much free time because their lives are really structured. They go to school all day, and then after school they have tutoring, and then after tutoring they have something else, homework, and then like every minute is filled with structure.
And even their fun activities, like say sports, like they're on the baseball team and they got to practice and somebody's do this. It's not just go play baseball outside and run around.
Exactly. So I did have that happen a few times and notice like the kids, and we're talking middle school age kids, they would come and go, or maybe high school. So we have an hour. What do we do? I'm like, well, you have an hour to do what you want. You can go sit beneath a tree. You can go look around, make up a game, invent a game, but they didn't really have the skills because they never really were given that free time before.
And you can see it gets worse as they get older because it's more of they've been sort of controlled or whatever you want to say, regimented, longer. So like 5-year-olds, they'll do, you don't have to do much.
Exactly.
they'll just start running around and do stuff. And but 15-year-olds, suddenly it's like, oh, what do we do?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we have a natural curiosity. That's why I'm really interested in this whole topic of getting outdoors, playing, adults playing, kids playing. It's one of the best ways to learn. But the other one too, like we're talking about the structure, the social rules, like learning how to negotiate, like that's one aspect. The other one, which you mentioned earlier, is just discovering your own boundaries and your own limits, your own sort of comfort zone. Feeling comfortable. Like I literally have this happen quite often before I was at the Green School, when I was leading trips for urban students. One of the first activities we would do is just a sharing circle. So, when they first arrive, we go to some forest or some rice field or whatever, some beach or something. and we sit on the ground, and more than, I would guess 80% of them would not sit on the ground. They would be like scared to get their pants dirty
Right.
or their shorts dirty.
Right.
And I would just say, well, you're going to be here for, a week, and you're going to sit on the ground. So you might as well just get used to it. And
just
then
start now.
eventually they would sit on the ground, and it's, we'd just do an activity, get to know you, what's your name, where you're from, all that sort of thing. But they would be in a circle. But literally the first couple of times they wouldn't want to sit on the dirt. They wouldn't want to sit on the ground. But then the flip side, that, after a week of doing that, they didn't want to get up. They loved it. They wanted to stay. They didn't want to go back to the concrete. They didn't want to go back to the urban area. They're like, they felt really comfortable. Sitting on the ground. But literally it would happen more often than not.
Did you have, or like, I'm always amused, like, anybody, like, where they'll like, let's say a fly will be by and they just freak out.
Yeah.
Like some little bug or something. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's not going to kill you. Good Lord.
Exactly. It's okay. But that happens a lot too. Some sort of insect or bug or spider. And, because I've been doing this literally my whole life, like you said, when we were little kids, we played outside.
Right.
So,
right.
If a bug lands on you, just go, flick it off. It's not a big deal. But some, especially the city kids or urban kids are like, wah!
Yeah.
And they all dance around and they get freaked out. And it's that scares me more than the insect when the kids are jumping and screaming. I'm like, oh,
what's happening? And it's just, like you say, it's just a matter of like exposure. And I think even parents, even in the city, I'm in a city now, but like every summer here in Japan, the cicadas come out, and everyone goes out and catches them. Like lots of kids do that. It's like a thing. And so I was actually a little weird. I never did that before. So I started doing it we did it this summer with my kids. And at first I was kind of like, because they're loud and big. And by the end of the summer, I'm just picking them up and,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's just a matter of comfort. And I had this conversation I think last weekend, actually, with a parent. And they were like, we were talking about snakes and spiders and creepy crawly centipedes, which I love. I love to see snakes and catch them, and spiders, within reason, as long as I know what they are and know that I can handle them. So I had a vine snake, a really harmless snake that was injured, and we caught it. They were going to kill it. I'm like, no, don't kill it. Let's release it. Cause it's, it's good. It's good for the environment. It's good for nature. And they didn't know what it was, but I just said, no, let's save that snake. But then one of the parents was talking to me, and they were like, well, I'm actually terrified of snakes, but I don't want to pass that on to my kids. Right. I want to become more comfortable with it, because it's actually a learned behavior. Like, you're not naturally afraid of spiders, and snakes. You're more curious. Mm-hmm. And within reason, you do have to learn to respect them. But that's a difference. Like, of
course, yeah.
I don't
especially
pick
snakes.
up. Yeah. And I don't grab snakes that I don't know for sure.
Right.
But there's a couple of species that I do know for sure. And if I see those, I can let kids touch them or see them to overcome their fear.
Yeah.
But if I don't know what it is, I stay at a respectful distance. And the thing is, I've never had a snake try to run at me if I left it alone. Like, they normally are going the other way.
Yeah. Right.
They're
right.
not.
Me neither.
Even when I was in the States, in America, even if I saw a rattlesnake or a copperhead or some venomous snake, I would just stop, and it would turn around and go. Like,
me too.
I think most people that get bitten by those venomous snakes is when they're trying to kill it with a shovel or something, or hit it with a broom.
Right. Or they accidentally like reach their hand in a wood pile or something. And
exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess my main message here is just like not passing on our fears, and then learning to respect it, whatever it is. If it's a snake, if it's a centipede, if it's a scorpion, if it's something venomous, they have their place. Just leave them alone. Don't disturb them, and they won't disturb you.
And kind of like you said, as from a parent point of view or education point of view, is to uh, kind of like build in those experiences. Even if you're in the city, you can do it. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. I wasn't out in the countryside. But you can, you can take your kids camping. You can get out into the ocean or the mountains or wherever you live, and and even in a city, get out to big parks and things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all it takes really is just a vacant lot nearby. And there's all kinds of interesting things growing between the cracks. Like, even here where I live, the brick walls have like moss on them. What do you call it? Ferns that are growing between like doors, the cracks in doors. So that's all kind of cool stuff. And then there's always something interesting landing on it, like some sort of beetle or some sort of butterfly. So I'm just always trying to check those out. And, with my daughter now, she's what I'm really proud of now is she points things out to me. She's like, Daddy, look, I found a beetle. So, teaching her to be curious and find it. And so she's out exploring by herself.
And I think there's a really, really big personal benefit. I think it's just good for your mental health. I think I know I'm happier if I'm outdoors more. And if I get like the winter, I hate the winter. I hate it. And so every winter I'm kind of indoors a lot more, right? And like it just I can start feeling it, man. After about a few weeks, I just not as energetic. I'm not as I don't know, as happy is the word, but I just don't feel as good. And then in spring, summer, fall, when I'm outdoors all the time, I feel great and just so much more lively. And
exactly. I mean, there's definitely
the sun in the sky, every day.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of health benefits, to being out in nature. And one of the ones we're learning about now, because the current situation is just vitamin D, getting some natural sunlight.
Yep.
It's good for the immune system. And like you said, mental health, just good for your eyesight to be out and see long distances. Cause we're always staring at our phones.
Yeah. Everything's close.
We're out looking at horizons and watching. And, for me, we don't do it every day, but at least a couple times a week, my wife and I watch the sunrise, which is pretty cool.
Very
and
nice.
That's just kind of, it's mentally and physically healthy to get out and do something and see something beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. When we lived in Hawaii, we would do that. And it was really nice.
Yeah. I mean, just the aesthetic.
Yeah. Actually, the sunset. We would do the sunset.
Sunset is good too. But there's been quite a few studies on that as well. Like just seeing greenery, seeing natural areas is good for reducing stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I know that there's some research papers on these topics as well that kind of prove a lot of the benefits of nature.
Yeah. And then if you can add a little physical activity to it, like walking or biking or something, then
exactly.
Really
exactly. Yeah. So, adding that in, whether it's, just a swim in the ocean. I think there's something too for swimming in natural bodies of water. We talked about this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Just, being out in the river or a lake or an ocean, swimming a bit. It's just, you just feel you feel cleaner, but you just feel like more connected, definitely feel like you're part of something bigger, you're part of the planet, the biosphere, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it. But it's like, you just feel like a nice whole feeling.
You're making me want to go to Hawaii or Guam. Yeah, you're absolutely right though. Absolutely right. It's great. So it's really nice too that it's good. I think, for families to do it. I think it's great to see that some interesting, schools or things are like yours is doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we're in a very different sort of setup. So our whole campus is open. We don't really have walls.
That's also great. So even when they're in their class, it's still open and they're seeing The
Yeah,
kids are
exactly.
seeing
And
outdoors.
so, you know, the other day, and it happens once in a while, like I said, we found that vine snake. They found it, and it was injured and they were gonna kill it. And my wife said, "Hey, do you want this?" So that kind of thing happens. Because
Hmm.
once you get known as sort of the snake guy on campus, you get requests to come and see the snakes. But then a gliding lizard fell like right on me. I don't know if you know a gliding lizard, but they're lizards about, you know, they're not very big, but their rib cage folds out flat. So they glide. So they climb up to a top of a tree, they open up their rib cage and they jump and they can glide.
Oh, weird.
So
Huh.
they're very cool. They're pretty common, but they're really hard to see because they're usually, you know, 10, 15 meters up in a tree.
Ah.
And they're not big. They're, you know, I don't know what, 5, 6 inches. I don't know. They're
Hmm.
not big, but and you can see them climbing up. So you can see them pretty often, but you can never really get close to them.
Hmm.
And they're actually quite beautiful, like really colorful. They have this yellow flap and or blue flap, depending on which, you know, male or female. And they have these beautiful colors, but they have this really weird rib cage that literally is like your hand. So, you know, you can see my hand. It's like, imagine your ribs flattened out and spread open. So
Oh,
you can
interesting.
flap open your ribs and fly or glide. And we had one drop into class the other day. So I kept it and showed it to all the kids. It was like really popular. Like all the kids wanted to come around, all the students,
Uh-huh.
and see it. And it became sort of a cool, teachable moment, you know, something you could teach that you didn't plan for. Like, oh, that's a cool, rare thing to have up that close. So, yeah, because our school is open like that, we have those kind of things happen reasonably frequently, like every week or two. Something
Yeah,
cool will
yeah.
just drop in.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, very
Yeah.
nice.
So you definitely like you literally can walk out of the classroom and be in a permaculture garden, you know, with corn, tomatoes, chili peppers, papaya.
Yeah, that's great. That's the one
Fun
thing I'm,
stuff.
us being in a city where we miss a lot. We've got a park near us, but
Yeah.
it's just we don't have a lot of that type. So we
Yeah.
can get there, not too far, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it definitely, I know as soon as we can travel, you're going to be here.
yeah, I know. I'd
Have
love
an
to.
adventure.
I know. I'd love to. I'd love to. Back before the kids, we used to travel every winter. We'd
Yeah.
go down to Southeast Asia, right? So we
Right.
visited you, and or I guess you weren't. Were you there at the time? Did we ever come down there since you've been living? I think we did one time.
Yeah. We
Last
came
time,
to Malaysia. We went to Yogyakarta and Bali once.
right? Did we ever go
Yeah.
to Bali when you were living in Bali, or?
No, I was still living in Kuala Lumpur at that time.
Okay,
But
right.
we traveled, I think we met you in Yogyakarta and we traveled down to Bali.
Yeah, I remember going to Bali with you. I just
Yeah.
I couldn't remember where you were living at the time, and then visited you in KL a couple
Yeah.
times, but yeah, I missed that. I was just telling my wife
Yeah.
that, telling to my wife, I miss it. I miss getting out during the winters. It really would help because always be like a couple months. So I hope that we can get some travel going again, back to normal,
Yeah.
and which this time we'll have to take the kids with us. But
Yeah. No, that would be cool. So yeah, definitely that's, I think that's a part of a balanced lifestyle is having regular adventures.
yeah, and it provides, because I've been living in cities for such a long time now too. The other thing is it would give me a lot of that nature time,
Yeah.
for a few months every year. I could occasion some cities, but a lot of also very nice outdoor places and
Yeah, for
mountains and
sure.
beaches and things.
Yeah. And I just I think 2 weekends ago, discovered this place here, which I will take you. But basically, you walk through the rice fields for a couple of kilometers, so 20 minutes or so. But then you jump on a tube and you can tube back down this tiny little river back to the starting point, and it was beautiful.
Oh,
So it's kind of a
nice.
tubing. So you get a double dose. You get the hiking, which is really good, and the beautiful rice field. Like, and it ends up at a nice little temple, and the Balinese temples are beautiful. So it's like a gorgeous Balinese temple, but then there's a guy there that you can rent a tube from and hop on the tube and just float down the river. So
Oh, that sounds great. And then you just leave the tube and they bring it back.
Yeah, they bring
Oh,
it
that's
back.
awesome. That sounds
Or
nice.
you can do it again, or you can hop in the bicycle or motorbike if you're lazy. But hiking's better, or just walking in.
Yeah.
But I did it on my bicycle the other day just to double check the location, and it was pretty nice on the bicycle too. So fun stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So no shortage of those kind of things here. That I think that's been the benefit of being here, and during this time, is we still have pretty easy access. The rice fields are really pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I remember when, I guess I'm in Bali a couple of times. And yeah, I did a couple of times I would go out in walking through the rice fields, more around Ubud, I guess.
Yeah.
But really, really nice, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And canyons, I went canyoning there one time.
I haven't done that here, but I know there's some decent canyons. I know there used to be a group of people that would go down. You take your ropes and carabiners and harnesses and everything, you can drop down in. I haven't done that myself, but I definitely know it's possible.
Yeah, that was the one and only time I ever did it. It was very interesting. So it's like a combination of you wear a wetsuit and then you rappel down, so you get the rope and you go down, and then you'll kind of walk through some parts you have to swim a bit, then you'll get to another drop, so then you have to go down again. There was this really big one that had this big waterfall, and they had the rope set up, so we had to rappel down next to the waterfall. There's one spot we had to jump into a big pool. It's kind of kind of a fun, interesting combination of hiking and swimming and climbing, and
that's cool. And that's that is a big benefit. And that we were talking earlier about kids and everything, and I think one of the big differences is just urban kids versus kids that live in the countryside. Because here we still have lots of countryside, and in Indonesia it's called kampung, like a village.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not really a city, it's not a town. It's just kind of, I guess what we might call rural county, like, something sort of out in the forest or the woods a bit. But what I love, we were talking about our childhood, is we would just have 6 or 8 people roaming around, hiking around, walking around, or bicycles. And they still do that here. Then where we live, there's still kids on bicycles roaming around in packs of 6 or 8 or 10 kids, doing silly stuff, jumping in the mud. My daughter came home muddy the other day, and we're like, what happened? She's like, oh, we just all jumped in the rice field. And I was like, instead of scolding her or being angry, I was like, awesome, good job. You jumped in the rice field, got all muddy. And then all the neighborhood kids, they ran over to our house so they could get sprayed off so they wouldn't get in trouble when they went home. So you can still get that sort of thing here,
Yeah.
You sparked my memory, because when you're talking about rappelling down, because a lot of the kids here will play in the rice fields have all these irrigation channels, so they play in the irrigation. So it's just a bunch of it's like a stream or a river.
Yeah.
And they just jump in it and play and get muddy, and it's it's fun.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
It still happens here. And random kids that you don't know just kind of show up at your house, and they're just part of the gang, part of the neighborhood crew. You're like, we don't know who you are, but here's a snack, or here's an iced tea, here's a drink, whatever.
Right. Nice.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I think those things still exist, especially in more rural areas.
Yeah.
Countryside, but maybe not as much in the cities as much.
Yeah, not as much in the cities, but you can still get. I mean, I say city. We're not like right downtown.
Right.
But so there's still, I think it's still, you can get outdoors a lot.
Yeah.
Right. There are parks, and there are, even our like a whole apartment complex has all these little playgrounds, and so a lot of the kids are. So a lot of there's actually still a lot of kids who are outdoors here, running around in these playgrounds and things. Yeah, which is nice. Because it doesn't even have to be, even urban kids, as long as you're if there's still a big difference between getting outside and playing and then being stuck inside all the time. And then the screens have made everything 1,000 times worse, because that's a whole nother level of being sedentary and being passive. Because even if kids are playing indoors, if they're creating and doing things and running around and jumping, and that's still much better than or actually even I'll see them at one of the saddest things is occasionally I see, it's usually like middle school age kids. We'll go to the playground and I'll see like 3 or 4 middle school kids at the playground, each one with their own phone, and they're all going and they're just standing in a little circle, all of them staring at their phones outside. It's like, I just want to
I know. I mean,
that thing.
I agree with you. The thing I've been doing, which I think is okay, because I mean we all have one, right? And mine's right here, and it's not going to go away. But what I'm trying to learn myself and teach my daughter and my students is like, I'm pretty much into like nature photography, so I like to take macro shots of insects. So that's cool, because in the old days I used to have this huge camera and huge lens.
Oh, right.
And now this phone camera is just as good. And so, and the cool thing is trying to use it wisely, I guess. So like I can take a photo of an insect, I can look it up and learn some cool facts, and I can try to dig a bit deeper. Like the other day, there was a beetle that was coming around and I didn't know what it was. So I just took a picture. I knew it was a beetle, and it turns out it was a species of bamboo beetle. But it was really cool that quickly I could look it up, because before that would take days or weeks. Like I'd have to find the beetle book in the library and flip through it. But now, like within minutes, I was able to like Google search the image, Google search some facts, type in some keywords like white beetle, descriptor type things. And eventually I narrowed it down. It wasn't instantaneous. It still took a bit of work. Like I still had to kind of think through the process. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like I didn't want the answer right away, because I wanted to kind of work through it.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't want it to take 2 or 3 days of going to the library and looking through a book and all that. So that's a cool use of it, right? Like, so trying to find that balance between staring at it all day, but then using it to learn something, about the natural world.
Yep. I agree. I just leave mine at home pretty much. So I use mine as like a home phone. Yeah. Which also works. Yeah. But you're right. It's just a matter of limiting, not letting it overwhelm. And especially and with kids, just you got to put, my kids are little, so they're not good. I don't have to worry about it at all. But
it comes faster than you think, though. Like Samara's, she's already learning how to make videos. She's only 9.
Oh yeah, wow.
There's a lot of cool things that she teaches me that she's learned
cool
from YouTube. So I'm changing a little bit. I used to be totally opposed to it, but now I'm just slightly opposed to it, because I can see some benefit. Like she'll talk, hey Daddy, did you know blah blah blah, and she'll rattle off some facts. I'm like, where did you learn that? So she watched it on a YouTube educational video, and I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Or if we find some cool plant, we'll take a photo of it and try to identify it together. So that that's another cool use of it. So I'm not 100% opposed to it like I was. I'm slowly changing.
Nice. Well, why don't we go ahead and we can end the stream here real quick.
All right.
And then I'll keep chatting with you. 1 second. Stop live stream. And again, your place is called the Green School. Go ahead, and if you want to say anything about it, you got a website, I guess. Green School in Bali.
Yes.
On Bali.
Yes.
Okay, great.